Hi, this is the second part of basic budgeting on Excel. In this part, we will talk about how we are going to be forecasting and calculating the revenue or income depending on your running the budget for a business or your personal life. And then we will talk about forecasting and calculation of cost and expenses. Then a very important topic, how we can divide the budgets to periods, and we will finish with the overview of the next part. First of all, I want to give you some definition. Revenue refers to the cumulative sales amount for a business. So simply, this is not for personal. When we talk about a person, money, we call it income. So, while in the business, on the other side, income refers to the net amount after we deduct all of the costs and expenses from the revenue. At personal level, income means money that is earned from doing a work, so basically maybe your salary, or received from an investment. Let's say you have some stocks on your hand and you're getting some return on the stock, so this is going to be your income from your investment. To start developing a budget, the first step is always planning the revenue or income for the personal life. In this course, we will talk about the personal budget, so I will briefly discuss with you some basic budgets for a family, and then you can of course change it, convert it to different stages. Your revenue items might be different, your expense items might be different, so your spendings might be different, so you can always change it. First of all, to start budgeting on Excel, you can select a template if you want to. Excel application offers many different items. I want to show you some of them in here. When I click on my application, I will have a screen like this, and then I can select some budgets. So I am clicking on other templates. Let's say this is there are different types in here. You can select out of budget. So I am selecting the budget from here. So you can select out of any types that you like. If you're developing the budgets for your business, then I would suggest you to take a business-based budget. However, in here, for example, there's a personal one. And there is also some information about how to use it. So Excel actually is offering many helpful tools for us to develop the budgets ourselves. And I'm clicking on the next tab, personal monthly budget. So we have the budgets in here. It is in Turkish. Depending on your computer language, it is going to be changing. So you have the income, you have the additional income, you have some income items in here, and so on. So this is how you can select out of the templates that Excel offers. Also, if you click on the source that I share on the link, at the bottom side of the slide, you can also see the online tips. You don't even have to have Excel application on your computer. You can also use online Excel tools as well. Let me go to my page again. Okay. So first step, we are going to be developing the budgets ourselves, let's say, so you're not going to be using any template. The first step is always projecting the income for ourselves. So simply we need to make sure that what the income will be for us for next month, for example. And let's assume that I have a monthly income for $4,000, and also I receive $1,300 for the rent of a property that I have. Plus, I work some overtime this month, and I will get an extra $300 as well for the month. So in total, I will have a monthly income for $5,600 in total. This is my projected income. So it might change depending on some things. I mean, future is uncertain, so we don't know actually what's really going to happen. Therefore, this is projection. Then we will have the actual results as well. And then we will going to calculate the cost and expenses. At the personal level, we don't have any distinction between cost and expenses. Simply we have some spendings. After we develop our income budget, so simply our spending might be in line with the income that we have. Therefore, we are expecting less spending than the income, of course. So this is a common, I put some numbers in here for my cost. For example, I have some mortgage, let's say, or rent. Then I have my phone, electricity, gas, water, and sewer, and cable, waste removal, maintenance, repairs, supplies, and so on. So you can, add more items, or you can deduct some of the items in here, depending on your spendings. The one important point is that we need to make sure that we don't miss any point. Well, simply you can say, let's say you're going to be going out for some nights and you don't know how much you're going to be spending specifically, but you should have a budget as well for that. So you can even prefer to, let's say $50 I'm going to spend for going for a movie. Then you should make sure that you're spending that amount. This is the major aim of the budget actually. We are simply ruling ourselves. Very important point is that budgeting requires working with periods. It means that you need to follow some certain period of time. It might be depending on your income. It might be weekly, monthly, or quarterly budget. Usually at personal level, we use monthly budgets because, most of the expenses that we have, like, payments for the bills, these are monthly expenses. Therefore, it is easier. This is the easiest way to use a budget. Use a monthly budget. But another important part is that once you start your monthly budget, you need to make sure that you always follow the same structure every month. So you have the budget for January. On the Excel, you can open a new tab for February, then another one for March, and so on. So basically, whatever you have on January, you should copy and paste the same items to the next month and change the numbers, whatever you have on that in that month. But the most important part is that we need to be in line with the period that we have. So if you start with weekly budget, you need to make sure that you're following that. It doesn't mean, of course, you cannot change the period at all. So let's say if you have a weekly budget, you can always combine 4 weeks or for 30 days. Then simply you can convert it to a monthly budget. But we need to be consistent on the style that we use to make sure that we will be able to compare months to, the current month to the previous months as well. And also we can create a graph to see how we were, for example, last year, for the entire year. So, budgeting is not going to mean much at the, beginning, because you don't have the actual results yet. You don't have the previous information yet. However, as you go through for entire year, after 6 months, it will start making some sense to you, because you will be able to compare your budgets to the previous months. This is a great tool to see what type of mistakes that we have done in terms of our financials, and what areas that we can improve ourselves. Also, it is always great to keep track of what we spent before, because it is going to help you to forecast the future as well. And in next part, I will talk about how we can use the budget as a control tool, because we will have the actual results as well. And we will talk about how we can project for, we can use the projections for managing uncertainty. And we will simply going to use the budgets as a control tool after we have the actual results. Thanks for participating, and I will see you in the next part.